Hey, what's good? This is the Walker Bar for Black Authentic Truth. Thank you for rocking with me. Thank y'all for supporting me. I was on a post earlier where it was talking about, or should I say, basically exposing the gentrification and the redlining that goes on behind the scenes. And it was a white man talking about how they buy up the property, let the property languish, let it look real bad, and then the city comes in and buys it out, right? Creates eminent domain and forces those black people out. Now, I thought that I actually saw this in my life when we lived in the hood or we lived in certain areas where, you might still have people living in the hood, but a lot of the housing has been torn down or it's closed or abandoned, and eventually everybody gets pushed out. They knock the hood down and then they do some redevelopment and bring in money, and then that creates gentrification, right? So on this post, you had black people. Of course, you had white supremacists, but you had black people that were saying that black people have a victim mentality. We should stop, talking about these things, and, we should do something about it. And my question is to all of these black people, because it's a lot of us like this that have this mentality of a white supremacist. What are you talking about? We have a victim mentality when the thing that we are talking about is still going on to this day. How do we have a victim mentality when the things that we talk about, the things that we are against, the things that we are outraged at are still happening to black people today? So with a victim mentality, people say to stop blaming others. In this case, we would blame white America for slavery or, racism for what has happened to black people or the misfortunes of black people. Now, my question is, does it still happen? It does still happen. So when we bring up all of the things that have happened to black people, the crimes, the racism, the trauma, the police brutality in modern times, when we bring up these things, we are not saying something that is not happening. It is still actively happening. That's even more reason to talk about the reason why black people go through what they go through or behave the way they behave. You look at black people and say, well, why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? When in reality, black people have been trying and putting their best foot forward since they got out of slavery. Black people built towns within 10, 11 years of being out of slavery. Black people have always strived to do better, strive to get good education, strive to work hard. Saying what happened to black people or pointing the finger at people who oppress black people even today doesn't mean that black people are not trying to better themselves in their personal lives. So when somebody talks about victim blaming, especially other black people, it is definitely a slave mentality. In fact, black people that say stuff like that have taken on an oppressor's mentality. You think like the oppressor does, right? You're in the big house. You have a delusion that you have now made it because maybe you got some accolades under your belt. Maybe you got some degrees. Maybe you got a good job. Maybe you can afford to go on trips and go to other continents and do things that the average black person probably can't do. So you have the mentality that black people are making excuses. They are stuck in blaming and being victims when in reality, all they should just do is do what you did, when nothing can be further from reality. You're stuck in a delusion that you're in the big house and you're next to master. And so you think like master. You're like the slave in the house and you done got a job. You putting on good clothes. You got a different outlook about life because listen, you came from the slave quarters and now you're in the big house. And then you go and tell the slaves in the slave quarters, you know what? Y'all got a victim mentality. Stop talking about what happened last week. I know master whooped such and such to death, but you know what? Put your best foot forward, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and stop complaining about what they did last week, and stop complaining about your living conditions. And you need to be like me. You need to succeed like me. You need to be a good boy like me so that you can get in this big house and so that you can wear these clothes and eat this good food. And you don't have to stay in the slave quarters, the hood. Now, everybody knows that black people, even today, we are still, still you hear this every now and then, you hear this. This black woman is the first black woman to do such and such in history. This black man, he's the first president of this blah 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 in history. Black people in 2023 are still doing the first, right? Are still being the first black person to ever do it. So we was never on an equal playing field. In fact, we never even integrated. What we did was assimilate, because if you was to integrate, if you just think about it as something integrating with something, right, coming together, everything would still be on a level playing field. It would just come together. But black people didn't come together with white America. Black people assimilated. Black people were kind of accepted, and then black people assimilated. But that's the reason why black people are the way they are, and we have our own distinct way of talking, of walking, and that's God given. But the reason, the point that I'm making is that we assimilated, and so we had to change our mind and our ways in order to assimilate and to succeed in another man's society. We didn't come together as one. We didn't come together as one. You have the evidence right now in your face. And in fact, this is the thing. The post that I saw, it was a white man that was basically exposing it. And then you had black people come and say, well, black people this. Well, the black man ain't in the house. Well, black people, listen, when it comes to white people and black people, we as a group of people, or as a nation, two different nations of people, two different peoples, right? In one country. When you look at white people, they are in the position they are in because of what happened in history, because of slavery. Point blank. When you look at black people are in the position they are in because of what happened to their forefathers and foremothers in slavery. Now, that is the common denominator. What am I saying? I'm saying this is the results of what happened in history. Now, however you live your life, or whatever you do, or whatever you achieve, you can do that. When I talk about slavery, when I talk about history, I'm not saying that every day I don't get up trying to be the best version of myself. Every day I don't try to get up and be righteous. Every day I don't think about ways to move forward. That's not what I'm saying. But hell, I can't talk about it. I'm a victim now. I'll be damned. I'm not no victim. And a person that thinks that they're going to victimize me or do anything to me is going to find out real quick. They'll be the victim. So the victim mentality is not about blaming somebody, but you don't say this stuff when white America talks about it. White America is built off the victim mentality and racism. White America, I'm gonna just say America is built off of victimization and racism. You don't say that when Jewish people, now the Holocaust was terrible. 6 million Jews, internment camps. They talk about it all the time. I was just at the Holocaust Museum. You know what it said? Never forget. Now, would these same black people, or would these white supremacists tell Jews that? Jewish people that? Would they tell Jewish people, I have to be correct, would they tell Jewish people that they have a victim mentality for talking about the Holocaust? No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. Do white Americans have a victim mentality for talking about Pearl Harbor? For talking about September 11th and the atrocities that happened to their people? But let me just add one more element in there. When it comes to the history of America, the Jewish people, black people in slavery, out of all those, what is still happening today? I'll let you think about it. Black people are still denied opportunities based on their race. Black people are still discriminated against based on their race. Black people are still being found hung based on their race. They had that brother down there in Mississippi where 3 truckloads of white men was chasing him. Later on, they found his body dismembered and his head, he was beheaded. You, you These things are still happening. And we have people in different sectors of society, like in housing development and land development, that is talking about redlining is still happening, which in turn is is an element of gentrification. But we the victims because we're talking about things that are still happening. These are not perceived things. These are not things that they happen to our ancestors, but they're not happening now. They still happening now. So how in the hell can we have a victim mentality? So give me your thoughts on what I just said. Let me know what you think about this quote unquote victim mentality when Black people talk about race issues, when Black people talk about history, when Black people talk about anything dealing with being discriminated against because you're a Black. Are we really victims? Is it still happening? Let me know in the comments. And with that, this is Black Authentic Truth.